everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, that is Caleb, and today we're talking about the 10 breakout stars for Nebraska in 2022. The guys that elevate their game, can take over games themselves, and potentially be the difference for Nebraska this season from, 4, 5, 6 wins to 8, 9, 10 Big Ten championship level play. So it's going to be a wild time. Obviously, we're coming up on the season. We got a lot to talk about. Caleb, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Can't wait to talk about these players. Let's get into it.
Oh, okay. Straight to the point today. All righty. So at number 10, this might be a surprise to some people, as this has probably been the player the most hyped this whole offseason outside of maybe a new quarterback, which we might just talk about later. But at number 10, we got none other than Ochaun Mathis himself. Coming in from TCU, going into his 5th year in college football, transferring in as an edge rusher for Nebraska. And obviously, we've seen the upside for him in his past at TCU. In 2020, he had 9 sacks, which was 5th most in the country. We've seen a lot of positive play from him in his career, but last year was a little bit of that slide. We're waiting to see exactly how great he can be, especially in the Big Ten, alongside Garrett Nelson. I think the physicality and the speed are the two things that you notice on the tape. The question was the consistency outside of just passing downs, where statistically last year on PFF, he ranked best on only passing snaps when it came to edge rushers and hurries. So he was 100th out of 507 edge rushers and hurries on passing snaps last year. But I think in this system this year for Nebraska, he came here specifically because of the usage. That's why I think he has to be on the list, and a guy you got to keep your eye on and know where Ochaun is on the field at all times in 2022.
Next on the list, number 9, another defensive player, Isaac Gifford, who's heading into his 3rd season. He had a solid rank last year on PFF, 94 total snaps last year. And if you remember too, Isaac Gifford had to come in and fill the role of JoJo Domann, who had a hand injury and was out those last few games. And so it was really Isaac Gifford on those last few games where we saw some really solid stuff, especially in the Wisconsin game where he looked very, very solid. I had 29 snaps and looked really, really good. And again, it was just kind of that Iowa game where, we had some bad tackling, but I don't think it was just him. I think it was contagious throughout that whole defense that game. So, again, there's just a lot of room for him to improve playing in this nickel spot. They've been working on him, prepping for him for this spot for a few years. So I think he could actually come in and pretty seamlessly fill this role. He's from a good football family. His brother is right now on the NFL on the Dallas Cowboys. So you think some of that has to go into play with it too. His tackling was solid, really, just outside of the Iowa game was pretty solid.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, it'll be him and Chris Clarebeck trying to fill that JoJo role. So that's what's going to be crazy. I mean, even in the spring game, he shined in the spring game. He's kind of one of the standout players that we talked about back in that spring game video. And so there is a lot of optimism that he can come out, take that next step forward, considering it is only going to be his 3rd year, his true 3rd year. And so that's the potential upside there for Isaac Gifford on the defensive side of the ball. So coming in here at number 8, another guy, the most talked player of Nebraska's offseason, hands down, Casey Thompson. Obviously heading now into his 4th season in college football, but transferring from Texas to Nebraska, the talk of the town, pairing with Mark Whipple as the new offensive coordinator. So there's a lot of moving parts on this offensive side of the ball. With Adrian Martinez out of town, Nebraska needs Casey Thompson to be the playmaker for us. And I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited. Obviously, the fit in Mark Whipple's system, which we talked about in the Upside video last week, which if you haven't seen it already, definitely go check it out. But the fit makes a lot of sense. Mark Whipple's vertical passing game, his love for the pistol, and his love to throw downfield are things that obviously Casey Thompson wants to do. And Casey Thompson really enjoyed throwing downfield at Texas. And now we have those weapons, guys like Omar Manning, Trey Palmer, who should be able to get downfield and make some plays. And I mean, a guy like Omar Manning, such a big body that you can hit downfield like that. There's just a lot of potential there for our offense to explode and make the big time play. So I think Casey Thompson fits in like a glove. There's a lot of upside.
Downfield passing is definitely what's super exciting about him. He's definitely more of a pocket passer than Nebraska has seen in the last few seasons for sure. Having Adrian start for the 4 straight seasons, you just kind of knew what you were going to get after 2 years. And to just have a new one is just going to be fun and exciting for Nebraska football. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest question is the offensive line, so we'll just have to see what happens. But at number 7, a guy who definitely struggled last year, but we see the physicality upside and potentially a new scheme this year that could make a lot of sense. Ty Robinson here at number 7. I mean, he's got the size, 6'6", 310. The problem was last year he just had a really inconsistent, a pretty poor season overall because, I mean, my goodness, half the time he was playing out of position, considering we're running a 3-4, half the time when the linebacker's on the opposite side, he's playing an edge rushing position as that big of a body. It doesn't make any sense. He was ranked 559th of 616 D linemen from PFF. And so I think there's a lot of room for improvement there, which could be exactly what Nebraska needs on the defensive side when it comes to run stop and a little bit of internal pass rush from the D tackles.
Yeah, I think at this point, he's a post-hype sleeper.
Literally.
You know, he was super, before going into last season, he was the guy that's like, he's going to make the jump. Like, talks about other great defensive linemen in the past few years. And again, just super disappointing for the whole fan base, I think. Really fell flat. Only 27 tackles, 2 sacks last year. And with pairing of O'Shawn Mathis and other guys we'll talk about maybe in this video too, I think that the defensive line can be really exciting. Here we go. Number 6 on the offense. We're going into Trey Palmer. 4th season, baby. Played 389 snaps at LSU when was a very good run blocking wide receiver, often for LSU as well. So not just good at catching the ball, but something that Nebraska, we really need is a good blocking wide receiver. We really pride ourselves on that. I mean, that's the reason why Stanley Morgan has a pro job. And other guys, Kenny Bell was a great blocking wide receiver. These guys, and that just means you get to play on the field too.
Yeah, it keeps you on the field.
At blocking, 100%. And I think he'll be great at the catching part too. He's speed. Yeah, last season he played 201 snaps from the slot, 184 is split out wide. He was 52nd in the FBS last year in average yards per punt return. So he's not just a wide receiver too. He's also a great special teams guy. And I think Trey Palmer has a ton of upside for this next season.
Well, yeah, I mean, the fit makes sense because, like, again, he came to Nebraska because he's following Mickey Joseph, obviously the positional coach who coached Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. And then you follow him to Nebraska. And then you bring in, again, Mark Whipple, who loves that vertical passing game. And then you bring in a quarterback who fits in that role. I think a lot of it makes sense. And again, when you have that speed like Trey Palmer does, the potential is there for a breakout without a doubt this season. And so if he can develop, I think we could see a pretty crazy season from Trey Palmer and this whole passing game.
And again, Mark Whipple loves to feed one specific wide receiver. And if he's the guy, it's not just a break, it's a huge season.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll definitely talk about that more too in the future. So at number 5, Garrett Nelson, I think he absolutely has to be here, near the top 5 at least when it comes to breakout players. You could argue his breakout was last season. I mean, he took a massive jump from year 2 to year 3 in production and performance. But I think there's still a lot of arguments for why he could take that next step this year. And having a better pair on the opposite side, just that alone can be an advantage. Moving into 4-3, we saw how diverse his pass rush game was last year already. And so you give him another year. I think there's a lot of reasons to really like what Garrett Nelson can bring to the table. Last year, he was already ranked 50th in the country in true passing sets when it came to pass rush on PFF. And then he was also in the top 60, 59th out of 507 edge rushers in hurries on passing snaps. So again, he was already doing it last year. And if we see any improvement at all, then suddenly you're talking about all Big Ten type players here. And that's where it gets really interesting for Nebraska's defense and for Garrett Nelson as an individual.
Yeah, and with the other guys on the defensive line, again, that 50th in pass rush is really just going to be a huge difference when it's just one guy kind of getting in the backfield. Now there's chaos with a few different guys. It's going to make a huge difference. Yep. And it's very exciting for Garrett Nelson, after his glorious NFL career he has, after breaking out, and he's a WWE star, it'll be a great time, and we'll look back very fondly on Garrett Nelson. Next is a fun one. Tommy Hill, going into his second year, played 59 snaps at Arizona State in his freshman season and was solid when he was on the field. And again, just because it's his second year, there's just a lot of room for upside. And again, this is a position we need. So he will definitely be on the field this season. We need him to break out for us this season. And again, at that cornerback position. And he's a physical player, which fits well for the Big Ten, maybe more so than the Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, even in his small amount of snaps, we saw like a good amount of film, especially in the 2 games where he had a lot of snaps with like some well showcased tackling and physicality. I think that's just what you're excited to see here in Nebraska. And then again, we just got to see him get consistent in coverage. And then suddenly he becomes a really, really exciting player, especially as we look towards the future as a guy to be a mainstay in the secondary moving forward. At number 3, I mean, it's got to be Omar Manning. The potential is there. Again, we already talked about the big body, 6'4". He was the number 1 ranked transfer coming in, going into 2020. He didn't get to play much in 2020 because of like injuries and COVID related things. But last year we saw him seem to consistently improve and showed the upside that we wanted to see, but the consistency wasn't there. Maybe part of that was Adrian Martinez. Maybe part of that was the offense. Maybe part of that was the scheming. Regardless, you bring in Mickey Joseph with a guy who has the physical tools to be incredible. So there's a lot of narrative here where if you bring Mickey Joseph in, he coaches him up, suddenly we see a whole new Omar Manning and a guy who can dominate the Big Ten. I mean, last year he played 415 snaps and looked really good in a lot of those games and had some big time catches and plays for Nebraska. But my goodness, if we can get to see a little bit of consistency and a little bit more separation from him near the line of scrimmage, then suddenly he becomes really special. And that's got to be the narrative for why Omar could be an unbelievable breakout.
Yeah, I think he's super talented. Josh and I have talked about him now for years. And it's just for whatever reason it is, he just hasn't quite been able to be on the field quite enough. You think in the Oklahoma game, he had some big plays too. In the games that we were really close in it, he made big plays, including Michigan State as well. I think Omar Manning,
Purdue,
man, he's due to be a breakout. And I think with a new quarterback and just some better passing, that's just an extra bump he needs. And then, yeah, you sprinkle on Mickey Joseph and Mark Whipple on top of it, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So for our final ones here, we're going to kind of cheat here at number 2. And at number 2, we're going to have 2 players here because it's a combo, potentially the lightning and thunder combo we need in the backfield. And it's Jaquez Yant and Anthony Grant as the 1-2 punch in this running game for Nebraska.
100%. Yant rushed 47 times for 247 yards last year and a touchdown. He had that 64-yard rush against Northwestern. I think that got the whole Husker fan base very excited. The consistency was the problem last year where, he ran the wrong way on a couple runs that had him sit down on the bench.
Lost the trust of the coaching staff.
Exactly. And I think with another year with Yant, just knowing the playbook, knowing everything, being in the system a little bit longer, hopefully being able to earn that trust, knowing the plays, he could be just such a great asset for Nebraska as a whole. I think, if you make that 147 to 47 to 147, it's a very exciting year for Yant. And yeah, he's very good, a big bruiser, a great fit for Big Ten football. But I think equally as exciting too is Anthony Grant. Yeah, just super good JUCO transfer. He started off at Florida State, then ended up going to New Mexico Military Institute. And there he had 2,549 yards and 28 touchdowns in 2 seasons. He averaged 7.1 yards per carry. He averaged 127.5 rushing yards per game, and he had 10 100-yard rushing efforts in 20 games, and including 4 200-yard games. JUCO, there's plenty of very, very talented players. Florida State's no slouch of a program.
Right, and he was their primary kick returner that year as well. And like you said, 9th ranked community college guy there. So you get that JUCO upside. Like we're looking for our own LeGarrette Blount who came out of JUCO and just dominated.
Kenneth Walker.
We're looking for, Kenneth Walker as a transfer coming in and dominating. We're looking for that type of situation here. And he has the athletic upside and the production in JUCO, as well as the rank coming out of JUCO. And not to mention, we saw the flashes in the spring game. He had the best play at the spring game. A really, really speedy run to the outside, took it to the house. Like that's why I get really excited about the potential of Grant and Yant as a 1-2 punch. I think it could be massive for this Husker offense.
And going back to the, being Florida State's primary kick returner, we had one running back who was pretty great after being a kick returner as a freshman, one Amir Abdullah. Obviously, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but it makes you think. It definitely makes you think as a Nebraska fan.
Is we need that elite breakout player to take over, and maybe, just maybe, it could be this guy at number 1. The player I think we're both most interested, maybe not just in the potential of a breakout, but just seeing what he can be. That's Alante Brown heading into his 3rd season. And one thing we know for sure is it's the speed. He has the athletic ability to be a great college football player. And we've seen it in the flashes, in the few snaps he's had on the field and the few receptions and times he's had the ball in his hand. We've seen it. And we've seen it in the spring game multiple times now as well. We're like, he tears it up out there, but Frost hasn't necessarily trusted him.
Yeah, for whatever reason in these past years. But now it's absolutely 180. Scott Frost has called him the leader. Mickey Joseph has called him the leader of the group, who's made the biggest improvement. That's no small words for both those coaching staff, especially Mickey Joseph too. I definitely trust what he has to say, and he's been quick to speak about Alante Brown, which means that he's definitely shown a ton this offseason. And it's super exciting again for a guy that only had 3 catches and 30 yards. And it could just be that, it looked like this whole time that Alante Brown has been inside the university, that he is super talented, that he's putting in the work. We're so excited to see what Alante Brown does. Again, one offseason can make the difference, especially, again, it's so close once you get into that Division I. Everybody's so talented. And it's the ones who work hard. And if that's Alante Brown this offseason, it could be really exciting.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is why we're so excited about any of these wide receivers is because of the combo of Mickey Joseph with Mark Whipple. Mark Whipple alone has an impressive resume of creating NFL talented players from UMass. Tajay Sharp out of nowhere just dominated, ended up being an NFL player, 5th round draft pick. Then they had Andy Isabella at UMass, a 2nd round player who absolutely dominated, had almost 1,700 yards in 2018. And then again, of course, last year at Pittsburgh, Jordan Addison, the Blitnikoff winner, 1,600 yards, 100 receptions. Obviously, you got, a Heisman finalist in Kenny Pickett there. But either way, the resume is there of guys who dominate at the wide receiver position. And then you also pair that with bringing in Mickey Joseph, who just in the past 3 years had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. At first, we literally had Omar Manning, Alante Brown, and Trey Palmer as the top 3 breakouts, because the odds of one of them going nuclear this year feels very high. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't stop talking enough about those guys. So there it is. That's a 10. I wanted to throw out a few just honorable mentions here. I think Chris Klaravec deserves at least a mention, considering his potential playtime at the nickelback position. And again, showed flashes of athleticism and playmaking ability, but just lacked consistency. I think he definitely deserves to get a shout out. And then I also want to mention Isaiah Garcia Castaneda as another transfer at wide receiver, because the upside with his athleticism on his New Mexico State tape was pretty impressive. And I think, again, the same wide receiver narrative could come true for, maybe him, or maybe even Marcus Washington coming in from Texas, pairing with the buddy here of Casey Thompson.
Yeah, 100%. I also think we didn't say Reimer, but I think that he could also be a breakout player.
If he rounds out his game, then suddenly he becomes the all Big Ten type linebacker.
Yeah, Josh and I have talked about him before too this year. And again, he isn't so much a breakout just because he was Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week last year. He did have good games, but it's a point where we do think that there still is a jump for him to have. That makes us excited.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. So there it is, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Drop your comments down below. And any guys that you think deserve to be on the breakout list, let us know. We'd love to see them down below in the comments. And we'll be having more videos coming out actually very soon. So be on the lookout for another video coming here in the next day or two as well. And then we'll have the Northwestern predictions video out very soon too. So be on the lookout. But as always, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Backseat Sports. And guys, we will see you next time.
Go Big Red.